Yes, people, we are back one step away from once again with a brand new podcast with a brand new subject matter. So this podcast is going to be speaking around mental health. First things first, I want to say this to those that know someone or have suffered or is suffering from mental health issues. We will say we are not specialists within the field. Please seek appropriate professional support and professional help. What I will say from this as well is thank you very much to all the viewers that have been watching in so far, listening in on all our different platforms. Please make sure you comment, please make sure you subscribe and support us as much as you can. You will find us on YouTube, and that is number 1 SAF, no spaces in between. Same with Facebook, Instagram, Spotify and Apple Podcasts. That is the number 1 SAF, one step away from. Okay, boys. So we're going to step it in straight away into mental health. Okay. So the first point we're going to be speaking of is defining mental health. So I'll give you a quick little brief. So an overview. The NHS states, states between the ages of 11, there are very few differences in regards to mental health issues between anyone from any cultural background up until the age of 11. This is also verified by mind.org.uk, which is a very well-known mental health welfare service within the UK. For some reason, after the age of 11, there are substantial differences between different people from different cultures. Now, the mind.org.uk states that Black women experience substantially higher rates of mental health issues than white women. This is past the age of 11. It states that particularly with psychosis, Black men experience 10 times more psychosis than white men. It also states that white people are 2 times more likely to receive mental health treatment, and that Black people are 40% more likely to access mental health treatment through either the police or the criminal justice system. So how do we define mental health? Anyone jump on that? I want to come with a definition from the NHS afterwards, but I would like you lot to jump in and define what mental health is for you.
Okay.
Thank you much, Jay.
Okay, so from an official or from a governmental or an organizational point of view, they would consider it, I think, from the Mental Health Act, any disorder or disability of the mind. However, for me, if you're asking me the question, what does it mean for me? Mental health, if I was being honest, is a daily, monthly, weekly, yearly assault course. And what I mean by that is that you get tested in every aspect of your life. You get tested. Your mental health is tested. If it's work, if it's family, if it's relationships, if it's your children, if it's finance, health, fitness, whatever it is, your mental health goes through an assault course every day, even sometimes when you're sleeping. So for me, mental health is an assault course that sometimes you can enjoy the assault course, like if you're about that kind of wanting to challenge yourself, but sometimes it challenges you when you don't even want to be challenged. So the best way I describe it is, especially with me in my life and my environment, is it's an assault course. Some of the courses are easier than others. Some of them are really hard. Some of them you don't really want to go on, but it's a course that needs to be completed. And sometimes when it doesn't get completed, that's where something may pop up, whether it be a disease or a diagnosis of something. When you can't get around that obstacle or that course, that's when things might actually start spreading out into your life.
Thank you very much for that. That's very clear and concise. You gave a more day-by-day breadth of how mental health can actually impact, and that it isn't specifically defined by a particular moment. There's a multitude and different variations that could actually include mental health. So that's very clear. Thank you much for that, Em.
For myself, I think before I was quite ignorant when it came to mental health. Like Jay said, when someone says mental health, always carries that negative connotation behind it. Yeah, so for me, it was ignorance. That's what I was looking for. It was ignorance on my part. I was ignorant to it because in my mind, I was like, look, it's negative. I don't care. I don't want to know, right? And then you start to go through a few things in life yourself. That's when it goes into what M said. It's a test every day, how you react, how you feel about a certain situation, whether it be in a relationship, whether it be in kids, in siblings, whether there's a siblings rivalry and stuff like that. So I started looking more into it and removing the negative connotation behind it.
Yes.
Mental health, I agree with what Em said. It's an everyday test.
And I feel that you hit a good point on there as well. We might not all be clued up on mental health and what that means for us, and even be able to define an experience that might be classed as
100%.
mental health, whether positive or negative, and we just see it as daily life. It's only really when you get into a professional field or a diagnosis or someone is giving you treatment that mental health becomes a defining term. Before that, it could be a feeling, which is basically what it is, isn't it? It starts from the mindset. It starts from the mind and emotional situation. So yeah, I can fully make sense of that, T. And the listeners out there as well might be in the same boat as you in terms of being ignorant to what mental health is and how, or what that is and how that can impact you, and if it has impacted you. So we're all in the same boat here in terms of learning, people at different stages in their life. And some people might not even know that information about this field because they haven't needed to. It hasn't been a priority in their life. So that's the reason why this One Step Away From podcast is so good, because it's about informing people as well as informing ourselves, and together we grow. So nice one. So I just wanted to go with a definition from mentalhealth.gov. Just a little bit of a lengthy one, but I'll go through it. So it states here that mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act. It also helps determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make choices. Mental health is important at every stage of life, from childhood and adolescence through to adulthood. Over the course of your life, if you experience mental health problems, your thinking, mood, and behavior could be affected. Many factors contribute to mental health problems. This includes biological factors, such as genes or brain chemistry, life experiences such as trauma or abuse, family history, or mental health problems. Mental health problems are common. I want to make that clear to people out there. Mental health issues are common. You are not abnormal because you feel a certain way. It's natural to feel. Okay? So to continue with this, mental health problems are common, but help is available. People with mental health problems can get better, and many recover completely. So I just wanted to throw that out there as a nice little entry into what we're going to be discussing.
I wanted to point out something.
Go ahead, Jay.
That goes to what I said, and what everyone kind of reiterated as it being a negative connotation. Like when we first hear mental health, even in the Mind.org definition, they mention nothing about positive mental health.
That's interesting. That is very true, and so that can actually add into what how we feel and how we think about mental health. And the problem is, see, you've actually sparked up another little thing in my head. This could start a taboo. Now, there's a problem when, and I'm kind of going into the second question, so I won't jump onto it yet. In fact, I'll ask the second question, and we'll step into that part that you said there, Jay, as well. It's a very important point that you mentioned. All right. Okay. So. Moving on to question 2. What is your experience of mental health? Your own personal experience or those that you know of?
Well, before I talk about experiences, just to continue what Jay was talking about, a lot of definitions or a lot of organizations don't necessarily start with the positive, and I think over the course of time, especially in the UK, it's been a bit of a stigma, and like you said, it's a taboo subject which has become a lot more open, a lot more readily acceptable, rightly so, especially in my lifetime. So there's certain words that you'd say in the past that you just wouldn't be able to say now, because it's that stigma is kind of gone, and it's more acceptable to talk about your feelings and express yourself. But I think historically, maybe it's a British kind of tradition, a British kind of culture, the stiff upper lip and whatnot, where we don't really talk about our emotions and feelings, where then we see people that maybe a little bit more emotive or emotional, or appear to be different. We look at them in a way that we all too aware of it as different, or like words like crazy and words like
Mad.
like just yeah,
Taps.
those words kind of, yeah, that's what I mean. And they're the type of words that actually are really, really harmful to use. And I can only imagine back in the day where mental health wasn't a subject that was readily talked about, how these people would have felt. I was, until my mid-20s, when I actually was a people manager, that's where I had to really take it seriously, because for me, and maybe as part of my culture, and maybe something that we'll discuss later on, it wasn't about talking about those type of things. You've got to kind of just be strong, but actually being strong is more than not talking, if that makes sense. So I just wanted to kind of add that in there. I don't know if Jay, that's where you was going with it in terms of the org definition.
You made a
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, sure. That's definitely part of it.
You made a interesting point there. Jay mentioned around how there's almost a taboo in terms of not speaking about it. I've done a little bit of research myself into a fear. There's a somewhat fear of mental health services, or a fear of being labeled as having a mental health issue. And I believe it was Dr. Frank who discussed around trying to break the cycle of fear. Because then when you break that cycle of fear, which is done by conversation, done by, instead of keeping that issue in the closet, you bring that out to the forefront, and it's readily discussed, as you said, M, on the table.
Yep.
So that's very interesting that you mentioned that, because this fear cycle can be attributed to us in many ways, just by gender I am alone, being a male. Having a mental health issue and being labeled by that might make you think I'm weaker. And because you don't want to be seen weak as part of masculinity, you then step back from going to mental health services. You step back from being tested or going to your GP because you are in fear of being labeled. So that's an interesting concept.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%.
So who wants to go first? Who wants to be the vulnerable one first?
I'll be vulnerable.
Come on, you're labeling, man. You're labeling.
Go on, Em.
This is what I'm saying.
So, from can you just repeat the question again, please, Kay, just so I can really...
Very basic question. You can make it as complex or as simplistic as you like. What is your experience of mental health issues?
Yeah. So, linking in with the mind.org definition, or not definition, but summary of what, especially black men, and it talks about kind of up until the age of 11, there's no kind of disparity, or there's no kind of differentiation between races or people until the age of 11. There's something happens within our community where that changes. And I can briefly, and I don't want to take too much time, but up until the age of 11 for me, so I don't need to do research on this part because this is my experience. So that's all the research I need. So
can I just ask you one thing, or ask the group one thing before you jump into that, M? In terms of schooling, what happens between age 11 and age 12?
You go to secondary school.
Thank you very much. Carry on.
So up until the age of 11. So bearing in mind, if the listeners kind of understand our journeys through from childhood, my mental health was probably gassed, if that makes sense, because as much as we had loads of experiences that were negative purely because of race, There was a lot of positive things purely because of my race. So I guess because I was the only black child within school until secondary school, which is a key point. There was a lot of spotlight on me, and because of my sporting achievements and because of sporting and dance and whatnot, like my ego was kind of probably falsely boosted for a lot of time, like for a lot of my kind of childhood, because I was seen as that guy, like if that makes sense. And because of those young ages, like there was no outside influence from what the real world was about. So you don't really understand what the real world is about until you get cross over that line and go from the primary school into high school, and then things start changing. But also we start changing, and I started changing and coming into adolescence, and then from adolescence you get into adulthood, and then that's when it all opens up. So
you enter the melting pot.
The melting pot. So for me, and this is going to be a subject on its own in probably season 2, which is relationships. But in terms of, just to give the viewers and the listeners an understanding of how my mental health has been shaped within a relationship setting, just listen to, and I wrote these down because I thought this is important. These are the type of things over the last kind of 10, 15 years of adult kind of life and relationships. These are the type of things that I personally, and yes, I will be the vulnerable one. These are the type of words that have been said to me, or the type of impressions, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate. And it doesn't even necessarily need to be in a relationship. It can be within work, anything. So words like, so when I'm passionate about something, I get told I'm being aggressive or nasty. When I'm assertive, I get told that I'm shouting. If I'm quiet and within my thoughts, in my life, I've been told that, oh, he's moody. When I've got strong morals and when I have strong morals, I get told I'm just being stubborn. When I apply common sense, knowledge, logic, pragmatism, what gets thrown at me is, oh, he thinks he knows it all. When I don't accept mediocrity, the response is, oh, he's always got an answer for everything. When I'm confident, or when I've been confident in my life, he's got a big head. So I'm sure there's some words there that maybe you guys might have come across over your life as
that's powerful.
Adult living. But just if you see the difference between those two words and what I'm trying to kind of, maybe what I'm trying to be or who I feel I am, and then from whether it be in a relationship, like past relationships or working environments or even friendship environments, whatever it is, and they're the different kind of impressions that you get thrown at you, that's going to kind of make you assess your mental health. And I don't mean this derogatory to anyone else that may not kind of think the way I think, but if I wasn't strong enough to understand what's going on when those type of words or those type of interactions happen, and I didn't have a strong enough, and this is why it's important, didn't have a strong enough support network to kind of just balance me out, then I probably would be in a worse place than where I am now, present day. So as an example, so just to kind of give you guys insight in terms of dealing with mental health, and going back to what I said about kind of that, having that kind of assault course, all those kind of things that happen, all those words or those kind of differences or opposite words that I kind of see or that I've said, that's what I have to live, or that's what I've lived for a long time. So that's obviously going to alter my mental health and create an imbalance. But as long as I've got the strong support network to kind of keep me balanced, and my own inner self to keep me balanced, hopefully I can get through those assault courses. So apologies for going off on one.
Not at all. Never. Listen, that's one thing that we got to learn as well. Never apologize for putting yourself on the table, man. We appreciate that.
But yeah, I said all that to say this, like from a young age until the age of 11, my mental health was kind of skewed in a way because there was no problem. Like people knew me for all the good things I'd done. Obviously I was aware of my color and my race and whatnot, but that was a separate kind of compartment of my brain. But in terms of like your own creating your own personality. My personality is being created by just all the good stuff that I was doing, but that wasn't the real world. The real world started from the age of 11, so I can understand the correlation. So yeah, that's parts of my experiences.
That was powerful, man.
Yes.
Yes,
You
yes,
know,
that was very powerful. Before you start, T, I just want to quickly summarize, just so people can get a breath. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Just as a summary, before that, up until the age of 11, M received positive interactions, particularly because of his color, because of he was a minority within the environment of school. That transitioned into negativity because this confidence that he was possibly given up until the age of 11 through positive reinforcement from his peers in terms of school students and possibly teachers too. This same thing that he was given positive recognition for was then turned into a negative definition when he got older. So that does cause mental health issues, because then who are you then? Who should you be? How are you accepted? So I just wanted to really focus in on that. That was very powerful there, Em. Thank you very much, man. T,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, no, definitely. I agree with him. And coming from a different angle. So, growing up, we all know some of it will be fun in there as banter, as as just joking around, whether you've got a big head or a big nose or something. If you remember from young, that would be your nickname. I'll be like, oh, big head or big nose or whatever.
100%.
Those are some of the things that would be thrown around children, and you would laugh about it. You learn to accept it. But Ems and you, Kay, you touched on a very important key about the age. Around 11, 12, you're changing now, aren't you? You start to become more self-aware.
The
Your
transition.
hormones are starting to kick in. So the things that wouldn't have bothered you when you were younger, for example, if you had a big head and everyone used to call you big head, that wouldn't bother you when you're younger. But when you start to become more self-aware, that then becomes an insecurity. You start to now look at yourself not in a so good light, to speak. You start to develop this complex about your head, right? Whether it's your nose or your ears, whatever it is. Because now it's getting to that level of, okay, you're interested in girls or boys or whichever. Yeah?
I fully understand that.
That affects you more than people realize. But us growing up as a culture anyway, that's things that are taken for fun. Like someone who's actually disabled in terms of maybe their leg is badly hurt or they've got a disability, that would be his nickname, like crazy leg or something.
Okay, so T, what you said was very important, yeah? You talked about puberty. You talked about the transition between someone going from entering your teenage years, which is about puberty, you starting to learn about yourself, your body changes. Physiologically, you start to become more aware of females. You start to become aware of your place in society. So that's a very prominent point. You become more self-aware. So therefore, these so-called names or stuff that was jokes beyond suddenly, because you develop that pride, you start to look after yourself a little bit more. You might even start to grow a little beard and stuff like that. You become more aware around your sexuality. All that stuff is going on for a child when you transition into adulthood. So yes, I can fully understand what you say by you having there being more impact with the same situation going on prior to puberty to after. So yes, that's a very prominent point there. Thank you. J
Yes.
and S, I just want to say a quick point, just so we can understand the question. It is, what is your experience of mental health issues? And that's between either yourself or those that you are, or those that you know of.
Okay, so I wanted to tell you guys like a little story. This happened recently, where I was fully made aware of my mental health and how I could have been one step away from having an episode. Let's call it an episode. So I was out the country. This happened 2019. I was out the country. I was out the country for about 3 months, I believe. Just off the back of breaking my ankle and my tibia on my left leg. I couldn't walk for roughly 6 months.
I remember that, man.
I was in a dark place. I was unhappy, depressed, angry. The rest of it went away. Had a brilliant time. Like, saw my family. Enjoyed like the festivities. It was carnival time. One of my friends from the UK came and visit. He came to do carnival. We traveled. We went to the sister island, Tobago, in the mountains, chilling, everything. Like it was like I felt revitalized. You know, I felt good. I felt happy. I felt comfortable. I felt safe. I didn't have any stress. Didn't have any tension. On the flight back to the UK, that whole plane ride, I had cold sweats. The whole plane ride, I literally had cold sweats. I felt sick. I was gonna throw up. I couldn't sleep. It was terrible. Anyway, landed in the UK, got back to the house, blah, blah, blah. Went straight to sleep. Bearing in mind, we landed like 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. Got back to the house about maybe 9, 10. Went straight to sleep. Slept for like 18 hours. Woke up like 2, 3 o'clock the next morning. And instantly, I felt my whole psyche change. In that instant of waking up, I felt how I felt 3 months prior. Literally,
so you were almost taken back to that original moment prior to leaving.
Prior to leaving, I'm talking about within an instant. There was no cool down period. There was nothing. It was like someone flicked a switch and I was back to where I left off before.
Jay, just asking you, what would you call that? What would you call that? You had an experience of the UK. You mentioned around your injury, so there's medical issues there too.
Yeah.
Which made you immobile.
Yeah.
You then went away from something.
Yeah.
You felt great.
Yeah.
Knowing you had to come back to something, you had a biological response.
Yeah. That's exactly what happened.
You don't choose to sweat, do you?
No.
You just sweat.
Yeah.
Now, you were sweating based on the knowledge that you're coming back to something that you weren't happy with.
Yeah.
It was an anxiety then.
Yeah. For sure. Looking back on it now, it was definitely like some sort of anxiety attack. I don't want to say it was a full-on panic attack because I've seen people with panic attacks, but it was definitely anxiety.
Yeah, but people deal with them in different ways, or they come in different ways, man. Sometimes it's not. They're kind of like really kind of erratic behavior. Sometimes it's like
ventilating type thing. Yeah.
Or it can even be like palpitations, like or what? No, so I could be sitting there, you wouldn't even know, but I'm getting these palpitations. So yeah, they come in all different shapes and sizes, man. So I'm not saying that is, but that possibly could be an anxiety of what you're coming back to. That would make sense.
So can I just mention too, as well, in terms of you being one step away from, boys, what would you think if you saw someone just sitting there and that is sweating?
On a plane, I would think something onto a wall. I would think, listen, you need to call the flight attendant because you've got somebody on it.
Come on, just say it.
Someone is sitting on a plane. No one else is sweating, but there's one person sweating profusely.
Nah, I'm thinking something's about
I'm
to
getting
go
off.
down.
I'm getting off.
What do you mean you're getting off? Where you getting off?
Where you getting off?
You get off the next stop.
Either they got a bomb or they swallowed some drugs or something.
Jay, did you have a beard by any chance?
I just had my moustache.
Oh, okay. Still.
I see where you're going with this case.
What are we talking about? Man, come on, man. But yeah, but look at that though. He's experiencing mental health issues in terms of anxiety, and onlookers, without having knowledge of, could think that he's either coming down or on drugs, or he possibly could be ready to sabotage a plane journey, which would make him one step away from being detained, being dealt with by authorities, being questioned. Now, isn't that something that exacerbates your own mental health issue? Imagine he was dealt with by authorities already feeling anxiety.
From the air or air
Actually, just to spin it a little bit, imagine you're going through, you've not even got on the plane yet. You're going through the checking in and customs, and you're sweating.
Boy.
What would happen?
Yeah, I would have got cavity searching a lot. I would have got searched hard, fam.
Yeah, because you could be anxious about, oh crap, I might get caught by customs. I might get caught. Yeah, and it happens. It happens, man.
It does.
So yeah, I'm just wanting to make clear in terms of people who go through mental health issues might be one step away from other outcomes, which does not actually provide treatment for their current issues.
Yeah. But yeah,
sorry, Jay, were you finished with that? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying that was just my one of many examples where, but this was like an instant. I saw it, I felt it. As soon as it happened, I reflected it, and I was like, less than 24 hours ago, I was not feeling like this. Why do I feel like this all of a sudden? Like, it was just, yeah, it was crazy.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you for sharing with us, Jay. S, would you like to share your own personal experiences or any other knowledge that you have of experiences of mental health issues?
My first ever experience of a mental health issue was when I was young. I'm talking year 6. Now, this wasn't me, but that opened my eyes to what mental health could be. When I first got to the learning the foundations, being a bit older, and you reflect back and you think about what you've seen in that. Now, mine was a relative. That is a hard one still. Mine was a relative.
Take your time, brother.
Certain things had happened, and I saw what I thought was maybe normal behavior, but obviously the older I got, it wasn't normal behavior. I saw a strong woman completely break down to the point where normal routine was kind of kept, but you could just tell there's the essence of something was different. Like when this woman couldn't sleep in her own bed, I'm talking for months, to a point where I'd help, I'd change the sheets, I'd tidy the room, I'd freshen it up, I'd keep the windows open, and still like the appreciation was there, but there was no like movement in towards like, sleeping in your own room or whatever. And over time that did get better, and later on down the line, me and this family member talked about those things. And as life experiences I went through my life, I'm 30 years old now, there's been times where I can relate to that feeling. Even if it's like a 10% of what this woman went through, I can relate to that 10%, and that 10% is somewhere I don't ever want to be again, ever. And that's just a 10%.
I hear that.
Do you know what I mean? That's when I learned that you can live in a house full of people and still be lonely, bro.
Say that again.
Oh.
Say that again.
That's where I learned that you can live in a house full of people and still feel lonely.
Brother.
Wow.
Jeez.
That's powerful, man.
That's powerful because it's real.
That's powerful.
Yeah, 100%.
It is, and it's a feeling whereby like routine doesn't even matter. Like you don't even want to like. Well, me personally, like my routine didn't matter. Like I didn't even want to open mail. Yeah. It could have been anything. Could have been junk mail. Could have been something from the bank, from work, wherever. Like, I dreaded the postman coming. Like the anxiety was just like, through my bones just for the postman. Like, I'm thinking that, and it took me a hot minute to get out of that space. But
Can I ask you a question? Did you feel connected to society as a whole by any chance?
Not really. Not really. Like, I knew I had to keep my head above water for my children.
I hear that.
Whether that be putting on an act or having better days, because as you know, mental health is like everyone's got mental health. It's a lifelong thing. It's not even when people, that's one thing I like to say, but when people say about mental health, like, you can have good mental health. Do you know what I'm saying?
100%.
You can be in a good headspace. You can, do you know what I mean? You can think logically or individually. Everyone thinks differently anyway. But to me, mental health is like a scale. So you can be either end of that scale or in the middle if you want to be like, go down that route. But I think everyone's got mental health, whether you're in a good place or a bad place. Like, the mental 100%. Health is a thing. So if I take it back to that scale kind of thing, and your question, Kay, where I felt linked to society, I'd probably have been further down on that scale. 100%. To say, well, all those things didn't really matter. Like, you know what I mean? Things go out the window. Like, your hygiene goes out the window. Like, you think, you know what I mean, it's self-worth. But then when you start going back a bit more up the scale, as I did, all those things kind of click back in, if that makes sense.
That makes complete sense. And what I want the listeners to hear as well is, don't take what we're saying here lightly. I'm not saying that you are, but don't. Hear what we are saying. There's certain attributes that comes with people who have mental health issues, whether it's from sweating to staying in their room, not looking after their hygiene. Be aware of the outcomes of mental health issues. These are signs. These are signs of mental health issues. So if you know people who are going through something like this, or maybe if you are, either check in on yourself or check in on them. Yeah, if you hear any of these signs that we're speaking I am about, please check in on these people, or other people check in on yourself, or speak to someone who's a specialist, because this might be early onset signs of negative mental health issues, because there is positive ones too. So S, thank you very much for that. That's very powerful what you said there. Also, what I want to make note as well, S.
Yeah.
What you done, you recognized that someone who was close to you had certain problems, and you didn't react in a way which exacerbated this. You reacted in a way which reduced their issues of mental health. You said that things got better.
Yeah, things did get better, but in that moment, I probably did what I'd been raised around.
But what you showed is care.
Yeah, because that's what I'd been shown.
And you're not a mental health expert, right?
Not at those ages, I wasn't. I'm definitely not now. I'm not an expert on my own mental health.
But look at the power that you had just by caring, though. That could have been a trigger, or at least a catalyst to them getting better. So whether you're a child, whether you're a teenager, whether you're an adult, you have power in you to help people get over certain negative mental health issues. Yeah, that's powerful, man. That's powerful. Okay, so T.
Yeah, I was just gonna jump on the back of what S said. Do you know what? When you were saying it just made me think about myself, and coming from an ignorant stance, so to say, where mental health I'd always brushed it off, like, oh, it's for the weak. I'll be honest and admit to it. That's what my mindset was. You're weak, because that's all I knew. That's what I grew up around.
That was mine as well. That was my stance for a very long time.
Exactly. But for myself, because of that stance, I never really used to recognize, sorry, when things were not right within me, where my mental health was in a negative state. Until I realized a pattern. And what S said was about, whether it's your personal hygiene or stuff like that. With me, I recognize that whenever my mental health was in a negative state, I would get messy. Not in terms of like personal hygiene, but my room would be like, my clothes would be everywhere.
Okay.
I wouldn't have the energy to just tidy up or do something. I would get clutter in my room. That's one of the things that I then recognize, like, okay, this is now a pattern. Whenever I stress about something, that's what happens. So now it gets to a point where I don't have to think, am I stressed, am I not? I only have to look at my room and think, right, what's going on? Sit down. Gather your thoughts.
So you're recognizing
Something
signs.
is going on. Exactly.
Mm.
I'm recognizing signs rather than recognizing the feeling. It's now the signs that are in front of me that I have associated with my mental health being in a negative state.
Negative state. Because I've got a question that relates to that as well. Because obviously you're talking about, you see the signs, right? Which is more of a subconscious indicator of your feelings. You can say that's how it's manifested. Do you think that we grew up having the thoughts of as being black, we are long suffering, we have to man up, quote unquote, we have to be stronger, we don't get a chance to be, like, mental health does not affect us because that's how we were conditioned as being black people from young?
Do you know what? I thought that when Kay said about the stats showing that we're 40% more likely to receive help when through the legal route.
Yeah, through police.
Yep. Police and the criminal justice system. That's
exactly
deep, man. That's deep.
I thought that because I thought 9 times out of 10, people only realize that there's a negative mental health issue when it's gone too far. Right? So what I mean by that, when they have now gone and committed a crime, right? How many times when something happens, you're like, listen, we noticed something wasn't right with this person or that person or whatever else. That's when they realize there's mental health there, because in ourselves we've been conditioned to long suffer, but also the keyword is silence. We suffer in silence.
100.
We do not speak. And that's, in my opinion, that's where we go wrong.
It's almost like that soldier mentality, isn't it?
Exactly.
Like, you've got to be like a soldier, and a soldier never complains. A soldier just gets on with it. He digs deep. He fights until he dies. And it's that sort of mentality. It's that sort of mentality that can actually be of deficit to us. And then we have to ask, where does that come from? We have to ask, where does that come from in terms of how we're disposed of? But that's stepping into the next question, of course. That's a very strong point there, T.
What's your experiences, Kay?
Oh boy, I was hoping to skip that, but I've been pulled out. I've been pulled out the dirt. I've been pulled out the dirt, man. He saw me. For you, where you going? Where you going?
Give us something light.
All right. Yeah. So
man, give us something you're comfortable with, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I kind of wear my heart on my sleeve, and I've kind of had to be that and learned to be that, regardless of whether people accept me or not, really. But in terms of my experience of mental health, I've had a lot of it, more than what people who know me can imagine. And I think that's the same for most people, really. We don't exactly, this is not exactly pub talk, is it? We're not going to get a drink and go out there and talk. Well, we do, because we're of a level like that. But
we haven't for a long time. There's like, I don't think that's necessarily true. I think there's a lot of stuff. I just don't think it's a natural thing.
It's not
to do.
It's not a natural thing to just come out and talk about what's really going on deep, dark inside your brain. But yeah, I've recognized that I've got dark places, man. And a lot of it is what people would call aggression. I would call it take one step further and call it rage. I've got a lot of rage in me, man, and it's been because of experiences. By the way, I didn't just wake up and just have extreme feelings of rage and etc. Ill treatment has caused me to feel a certain way, and it's derived from a certain group, and it's been a consistent, continual pattern of ill treatment, and disproportionately compared to the good treatment that I've received. And even beyond that, just my experience of life and has caused a lot of issues. So this is a daily thing that I battle with. This is daily. I've got very broad shoulders, so I can carry a lot, and I recognize that I can carry a lot. However, if I snap and lose my head, if I cross that line, I'm crossing it, man. It's not going to be a step over. I'm going to jump full body over the line, and whoever's there is getting it. It's that simple. And that's been because I've had to deal with an ordeal continually from one year to the next. And it's been to the point where it has reduced my survivability. People and organizations have tried to reduce my survivability for no reason other than they just didn't want me there, just didn't like me. And it's also the experience beyond the workplace as well. In public, I've been seen as this negative figure when I haven't done anything negative to be seen as a negative figure. But the stereotype is enough for me to be treated as such. I've recognized that I do have issues when it comes to that. And I'm lucky that I have people that I can talk to who will listen to me without judging me. I'm lucky that I can speak to those people who will understand me from the ground roots level and will not see any signs of mental health issues as something that needs to be contained or detained or secluded or separated, but more that, tell me what's going on, K, man. So I live by a daily issue that has only gotten worse over the years, but I've got to a point where I've had to seclude myself from other people who I don't feel are really there for me. And that might be a positive thing or a negative thing, but I don't trust people. The result of me and my experience is a automatic distrust for someone who I don't know and who hasn't proven themselves, because of being trod on by people who I have put trust in. So that has caused a massive complex in terms of my mindset. And I'm battling with that every day to make sure I don't portray that. That I'm trying to make sure that every day that I don't use my past experiences on potential new experiences, because then I'm going to limit myself by my own trauma in future opportunities, in future situations. So I didn't give a specific event. I'm given a breadth over what I go with through daily. And it's hard, man. I don't hardly sleep. Anyone who knows me know that my sleep is off. If I get a good 5-hour sleep or 4-hour sleep, to me, that's a luxury, man. More time I'm laying in bed, just laying in bed. I'm shattered. Eyes closed and feeling heavy. It's stinging. I just can't sleep. I can't sleep. And that's been years now. Years. And there's something there that is not in balance, and it disrupts my hormones. It disrupts my routines. And I have to be obsessive with certain aspects of my life because it maintains me. Because I fear if I didn't have this continuity, this routine, I'm going to replace it with something else that isn't helpful. And it will make me one step away from.
Well, that's what you're stepping into the realms of coping mechanisms now,
It is a
aren't you?
coping strategy, and it is a coping mechanism, and it has worked for me so far.
But what we have to identify and maybe explain, not that any of us are professionals, but there are positive and negative coping strategies and
100%.
mechanisms.
Now, this is a positive coping strategy for me. I train. I go to the gym at least 5 to 6 times a week. Yeah. Now, to me, that's better than drinking every day. To me, that's better than taking drugs. To me, that's better than being violent. I'll rather go gym, put my headphones on, listen to some nice music, and just be in my own zone. It de-stresses me. So then I can come home and I don't bring that stress home. I can talk to friends and family who are really there for me, Not those who only want me there because they want to go and have a drink, or because I make them laugh, or because I can teach them something and they can gain from me and then they disappear when I need them. But people who are really there for me, that's who I speak to.
Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah.
That shows that you're
balance
making educated and logical decisions to maintain your mental health, though.
100%. I am making logical decisions. I understand that I'm lucky in terms of I'm able to be completely conscious of my being, of my status. And when if I am one step away from, or if I do become that negative outcome, it will be a conscious choice and I will want to do it. Trust me. Yeah. But at this moment, I've got so much responsibility on my back to be a role model, to have gone through something and try to come out the other side. So I need to be conscious, which I am, in terms of stepping towards a positive outcome. And all them previous aspects that I mentioned are helping me to step and keep on that path. So yeah, there you go. You drawed me out.
No, it's
Thanks, man.
just it
That's
makes sense. It makes sense, and I obviously we're completely different, and we have completely different lives as such, but similar as well. But I can relate because, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate who are listening, and even you guys in the group. Like for me, the biggest thing, and it probably does touch on a cultural thing, like you mentioned earlier, Kay, about that soldier mentality.
100%.
It goes deep. It goes deeper, and I'm sure we're gonna get to that later on in the conversation. But that mentality itself, that just soldier mentality, for me, I know that's a learnt behavior. I learned that from my dad. One reason or the other, that is just something where, okay, that's just the mentality you need to have. However, as you get older, or as I got older and I had more responsibilities, that mentality still there, still with me to this day, but it's used in a different way. And when it comes to mental health, and I'm not saying this is the way to deal with things to anyone that's listening, I'm just saying this is insight into how I am as a person. And I think this was mentioned before in a previous podcast in a different way. For me, and this is why I probably don't fall down some of the traps that the mind can take you down, and that I've seen people go down, and it's not nice. If I say to myself, and this is I probably need to kind of address that at some point, but I say to myself, and also this is true, if I'm not strong, everything around me, like in terms of around my inner world, crumbles.
Your network, yeah, 100%.
It crumbles. Like when you have responsibilities, and I'm sure, like let's just use just being a father, for example. If you are that one that loses that strength, no matter, people will try to deny it and say, no, that's not true. It's not about kind of being that better person. I'm just saying, if I lose my strength that I've built myself up to be as a person, everything else crumbles. And even people that might not think, oh, well, what does that mean? Like you will feel it. You will feel it indirectly or directly. You will feel, if I let go of what I hold on to, which is my mental strength. And once again, I'm not trying to like put myself above anyone. Everything else crumbles. And so the option to fall, the option to take a knee, the option to be weak doesn't become an option anymore for me. Because as a black man trying to handle their business, we all know that there are vultures out there, men and women,
Yep.
There's vultures out there that are just waiting for you to fall or meet that stereotype. And for me, when I've spent all my life for good and bad reasons trying to kind of stay away from those stereotypes, trying to kind of prove myself to society that actually, that's not me. I might look the part, but I'm not that part. There's the option to not like that. There's just something that overrides where, I don't know, other people may have a luxury to like fall back on. I don't have that because I understand the implications. Okay, so people might say, so those words that I said at the start, they might be used against me, but if I'm any other way, what happens? Like, seriously, what happens? Like, whether it be from a working point, just a family point, a relationship point, a friendship point, what happens then? So as much as that shouldn't always be the go-to, this is what we have to live and be in order to, that word survivability. That's my survivability, is that I have it. It might, in the grand scheme of things, it might not be true, but in my mind right now, I feel that if I'm not strong into my convictions and the things that I do, I feel a lot of things will crumble very quickly. And who will be the one? The eyes will still be on me though. So when I lose that strength, the eyes will be on me. So I personally believe, for me, I've had to have or just get an increased resilience.
100.
And I know, and I've had this in my life. I've had people try to break me, try to kind of like even more so because they know of my inner strength. It sometimes becomes a bit of a challenge. Let me see if I can. What if I do it? What if I dig this way? I haven't tried this before. Like, trust me, I had it every other way. And as a black man and as a black dad, and I guess that's probably another podcast, you will get that. And I'll say this: when you're a black man and a black dad, and with mixed race children, trust me, listeners, if you don't understand, or if you do understand, you know what I'm saying, because you will get certain daggers will be put in.
Yeah,
for certain reasons, but I'm not going to get onto that. That's another podcast.
Yeah, that's definitely another podcast, man. That was
Yeah.
powerful what you said.
But
there,
what I'm
man.
saying, all I'm saying is that my mindset right now, you can't break me.
100, brother. And I tell you what, because of the strength that we have as a unit, in order to break you, they got to break us first,
And that's
for another podcast.
That's the key. That's the key there. And what M said, I just want to jump on and say, our favorite saying, man, generational conditioning.
Yeah.
We're always saying this time and time again. Some people may take it lightly, but what we're doing now is relearning. We're getting rid of most of the stuff that we know, not all of it, because some of it is good. Most of it is good, actually. But we're relearning from, like you said, about your dad not talking about things, or our dads didn't. And I can 90% be confident that 9 out of 10 people will say that. No, they didn't. There are conversations that we never had with our parents. Not because they didn't want to say it, just didn't come up. It's not in our culture to do that.
That's an interesting point.
But now we are talking about it.
And that's positive. And this is what we aim to do as One Step Away from, man. So thank you very much, everyone, for expressing that. We're going to come to a little quick break, and we're going to come back in part 2, where we're going to be discussing what could potentially contribute to diagnosis and disposal of Black people within the UK. Also, what sort of outcomes and treatments are there for people who are diagnosed or disposed of through the mental health pathways. And finally, got to come with a solution element to how can we prevent ourselves or reduce our likelihood of mental health issues. Okay, so thank you very much. I would like to say, viewers, thank you very much for viewing the first part. Stay tuned for the second. Please comment and subscribe. Thank you very much.